All right, so I think we are going to get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you again for signing in and making time to attend today's discussion on wading through uncertain times. Just a few housekeeping details to share about today's webinar. Everyone will be muted. The webinar will be recorded and sent out to anyone who would like to share it with others or who missed parts of the discussion. As mentioned, there's a poll for you to fill out and it'll be up throughout the entire discussion. And then there is a chat box at the bottom of your screen if you have any questions that you would like to ask of the panelists or that you would like addressed later on maybe. I'm Noelle Kim and I am one of the business development managers at Seattle Southside. We are the regional tourism authority of the cities of SeaTac, Tukwila, and Des Moines. So what that means is that we handle the destination marketing for the area. And I have the pleasure to introduce you to our great panel of event professionals for today's discussion. And thank you to our partners at Des Moines Beach Park for putting this event together. So first, we have Mandy Forbeck. She is our moderator today. She is the event specialist at the Des Moines Beach Park Event Center. And in regards to our other panelists, please wave as I introduce you guys. We have Marie Louderback. She is the VP of Communications with ILEA Seattle and has been on their board for 4 years. For those who do not know what ILEA is, they are the International Live Events Association. Marie is also the catering sales manager at the Radisson Seattle Airport, but is currently on furlough. Next, we have Kayley Driggers, owner of Kayley Driggers Photography Company. We also have joining us today is the special events coordinator from Act 3 Catering, Markelle Fuegmann. Becka Temple, a retired event producer and DJ, and currently an all-around industry guide. She is also the admin of the Seattle Wedding and Event Network. We also have Claire Fernandez. She is co-partner and the director of sales with Party on the Rocks. Party on the Rocks offers event staffing and bartending services for private events. Ashley Young is the other half of the team that coordinated this event today. If you don't already know her, she is the events and facilities manager at the Des Moines Beach Park. And last on our panel today, but not least, is Caitlyn Shearer. She is actually my counterpart at the RTA, and she handles the Smurf and sports markets for the Seattle Southside region. And I think that's about it for now, so I will hand it over to Mandy and let you take it from here.
Next, I have a question for Caitlyn. Caitlyn, how has the RTA responded to cancellations and postponements during the current stay-at-home order?
Okay, can you guys hear me? Is this lagging at all? Okay, sweet. Thank you. As the RTA in regards to cancellation and postponements, I guess I'll start specifically with what I do there. In group sales, I work with any group that comes to the area for a tournament, sporting event, tour group, or any kind of social event. And in kind of the life cycle of what any one event looks like, it'll often start with me. As that business development manager at Seattle Southside, we work with our clients who come to the region and help them out with free services to get them exactly what they need. So connect them with folks at the beach park or at the Radisson or at Sharps or Seattle Chocolate. So we work with all of our industry partners to try and get all those options out to our clients. And so when the client selects their venue, we support them however we can and however they need. But that relationship then becomes, with the event venue. So kind of in these COVID-19 times, if an event has to be canceled or postponed and any one venue cannot accommodate that postponement, doesn't have a date available or just isn't available, clients can circle back to us and we're happy to help them kind of be that one-stop shop back to the beginning, but to help them find, what they need here in Seattle Southside. Yeah, so just, yeah, helping our clients out with whatever they need, connecting them to what they need during these unprecedented times. I'm sure everyone's tired of using the word unprecedented. And then just supporting our partners as well, you know, keeping them up to date happening. And then additionally, our partners reach out to us and let us know, you know, hey, we're open for takeout, or you can contact us to buy a tour voucher, or, you know, and we can blast that out to the community and to our clients as well to let them know what's available. So that's what we're doing.
Awesome. Thank you, Caitlin. My next question is for Ashley. Ashley, how is the beach park responding to cancellations and change of dates?
So for those of you who don't know, the beach park is owned by the city of Des Moines. So it's a public park and it's open to our community, which means that our operations might be slightly different than a venue owner or manager in this industry. So how the community is impacted is a big decision maker for how the city proceeds, especially keeping in mind the well-being of our residents, our clients, and our staff members. And just to real quick, am I okay? Can everybody hear me? Just want to make sure, okay. So as of right now, the city has suspended all events for the month of May. And extensions for June, July, and August are constantly being evaluated. But at this time, no decisions have been made for the city to make any suspensions. If you wanted a great resource to see how the city is staying in compliance and consistent, we follow what King County and the Seattle and King County health authorities are recommending. And so visiting either one of their websites is always a great idea to see just, you know, the direction that the city might be going in. So with that said, any events that have been suspended that the city decided are suspended are being refunded in full. And if in the instance any future events were impacted by the stay-at-home order, the city would more than likely will absolutely refund those events affected as well. Right now, we're offering our clients that have events in the summer through August, and especially those that have concerns about financial hardship, friends or family members who aren't able to attend, or there are other concerns that they have. We are first offering them the option to postpone within 12 months of their original date with no change of date fee. And then we'll even have provided the option for them to cancel without any penalty. But what we want to encourage is for our clients to call us. Conditions are changing so often that the policies are changing with them. And the more information we have, the more of an idea of where our clients are at and how they are feeling will really help the administration as they're making decisions. So please feel free to reach out to us. We want to be an open resource for you guys.
Thank you, Ashley. So my next question is for Markelle. Markelle, how has Act 3 been responding to cancellations and change of dates?
So right now we're kind of trying to work within current mandates. So I've been working hard to postpone and reschedule all of my April, May, and June events at this time. And we're letting them roll over any payments to future dates between the end of this year to any time in 2021. So we're working on that. And then also just kind of with the changing circumstance, we've also kind of pivoted into more of a specific like delivery service model. So we're launching, we did launch last week, a doorstop delivery service. So we do a family meal service now that serves about 4 to 6 people, kind of some of our favorites off our menus to kind of be able to give food out to different frontline workers, as well as any of our brides and grooms that want to try some food.
Awesome. Thank you, Markelle. Claire, how has Party on the Rocks been responding to clients about change of dates and cancellations?
So Party on the Rocks, we have been trying really hard to stick to our contract, which of course was written before all of this craziness happened. And pretty much, so we're a small business, we're locally owned, a mother-daughter team, and we can't really just refund everyone. But what we are doing is we're making it really easy to just move your date. There are no change fees, there are no like blackout dates. We're trying to make sure we have a lot of couples that are rescheduling to Saturdays and next year, or if they were a June bride and they pushed it out to October, but we come in October and something has to change. We're making it really flexible for them. It doesn't have to be an end all be all because we want them to have a really good experience and also for our business to succeed once this is all over. So we're just making it really, really easy for them to reach out, give us a new date, boom, we send an updated contract. And I think a lot of the small, like family-owned businesses are trying to do the same.
That's awesome. Thank you, Claire. Kayley, how have you been responding with clients and cancellations and change of dates?
So I just want to start off and say, can you guys hear me okay? All good? Okay, perfect. Yeah, so because I am a single member business here, I run my own photography business and I specialize in weddings. I have the pleasure of working with all of my clients individually, and that is one of the best parts of my job. So I am trying to just deliver the best experience I can for all of them. No one expected this to happen, and so we are all trying to navigate this together. So thankfully I haven't had any cancellations, but I'm trying to take all of it on a case-by-case basis in the same way that I don't believe that wedding packages are a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. I also believe that COVID-19, there's no one-size-fits-all solution for this either. So basically, I will just try to coordinate between the venue, the caterer, some like the two other really big and important vendors throughout wedding planning, and just see if we can all kind of align with a future date for them. And then, yeah, if they are rescheduling due to COVID, I am more than happy to take the retainer fee for their original date and placing it on a new date. And there are, because like I said, I am like a single member of my business, that there are some primary dates for 2021 that I am associating some fees with, but I am providing a couple of dozens of new dates to choose from that are completely free of fees and whatnot. So yeah, I just firmly believe that no one's going to come out of this situation winning, but if we can all kind of give a little, it's going to help everyone win a little bit instead of one party losing a lot. So trying just at the end of the day, really trying to be as flexible as I can. And my couples have been amazing and provided the same in return. So I've been very appreciative of that.
That's great, Kayley. It's really good to hear that for sure. Becca, this question is for you lastly in our first round. Since you're not directly related with an organization, we just thought yours could be a little more general. So what are your thoughts on how to approach rescheduling with your vendor, and what questions should the client be asking right now?
Sorry, I unmuted myself. Hi, everybody. I want to say thank you for everybody joining in, and I know that we have a lot of industry people joining us as well as engaged couples who I think right now are just hoping to God one of us comes up and says, by this date, it's go time. And unfortunately, none of us have that answer. But in the meantime, it's all about working together. And there's people from all different types of businesses here. We have huge businesses that can afford to have an entire legal team and have furloughed all their employees, clear down to just sole proprietors. And, you know, honestly, between the situation is that there are a lot of people in this industry that are sole proprietors or even little LLCs that are amazing creators and they know how to do their trade really, really well, but they are not business educated people. They do a great job and they're learning, but as far as it goes, most of them didn't go to college to learn how to run an actual business. This is new to them and it's scary. And so what I'm seeing is a lot of the smaller businesses are really trying to follow suit on what the bigger businesses are doing by rewriting their contracts and then revising them as we go. What you could have been presented a month ago isn't the same type of information or offerings that they're going to be giving you now. And it's constantly evolving and changing, and we're trying to evolve and change with our couples who are trying to figure this out as well. So the biggest input that I've received from other vendors is they are, the majority are asking that you just call them on the phone and talk to them like a normal human being, person to person, and have a heart to heart and say, what works for you, what works for me, let's come up with a type of solution. I think as far as it goes for, if people are asking, should I reschedule this year? I mean, if it were me, I think it's too soon to know. And it may be worth asking your vendor, are you cool with us waiting just for like another month, and then let's talk again together and see if we want to extend that another month. There goes my dog alarm. So, but other than that, you know, questions to ask your vendors is just to ask them, where are we with this? What is your business plan? How are you doing business wise? What do you expect for next year? Asking them, they should be telling you what dates they have available if they're not comfortable rebooking this year's on Saturday in August for next year. All of these things you really have to discuss with them, and it's super personalized. So just have a face-to-face with them and a heart-to-heart.
That was great, Becca. Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna circle back to Marie real quick and ask your first question again so you have a chance to answer it. Marie, in your experience, how have hotels in this region been responding to cancellations and change of dates?
Can you hear me okay now? Is it coming through? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, perfect. All right, so basically in the beginning of March, we didn't really know where we were going. And so we're just case by case taking it. And then as the governor's protocols came through, it kind of helped guide us on what we needed to do. And really the synopsis of it was looking out short term. So 2 weeks at a time, 3 weeks at a time, maybe up to a month now. It's really hard because nobody has that, you know, crystal ball to look ahead and know what's going on. But basically, since I'm not back in the hotel right now, people I've talked to and listened to, they're kind of doing the same time frame as, you know, looking out as far as we feel reasonable. And everything again, I think everybody's kind of said it, you have to look at the details of what's going on. And just, I don't know what part you heard, but just kind of reiterate that, you know, everybody cares about their clients. They're working hard. They're trying to make it work. But just know that sometimes, you know, they can't refund those. And it's important to realize that these vendors have put in a lot of work already for your event, meeting with you, planning with you, internal things that they've done. And so these cancellation or these deposits and fees that they've charged already are really to go towards work that they've already done. And then just that everybody's working really hard to kind of create that plan B, C, and D to just make sure that you have a great event. So, you know, even though your event maybe didn't happen yet, everybody's still working to help you on that event.
Awesome. Thank you, Marie. Okay, so now we're going to move on to like a second round of questions. And so we have one prepared for everyone. So I'm just going to, again, go around the virtual room and ask you all your questions. So we will start with Caitlyn. Caitlyn, this pandemic is having a direct impact on meeting and events industry, shaping the execution and operation of local events. What is a good resource for planners who are looking for up-to-date information on local mandates and travel advisories?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, you can Google like crazy and find exactly what you need. But if you know, like, I can speak for Seattle Southside. Any DMO really is going to be a great resource for you. We work with local cities, state government, to get all of the information we need. And on every DMO page I've been on, so I'm sure everybody has, but the amount of webinars I've been on since this all started, it's kind of mind-boggling. But just the resources you have in those other DMOs and seeing what they're doing, there's all of these COVID-19 resource pages, and it includes, you know, governor proclamations, mandates. It includes what's open, what's closed, and dates to shoot for. So I know locally here for the sports market I work with, if we have tournaments coming up in June, and those haven't been called yet because we're kind of waiting for that May 4th date. And you can find that, all that information on our COVID-19 page, as well as, you know, like I said, on those other DMO sites. A quick example, it's really timely actually. My family, we've got to go down to Astoria, Oregon, and there's all these rumors floating around that the whole coast is closed and hotels are closed and everything is closed. And One Stop Shop, I just went to the state of Oregon, to Travel Oregon, to their website, and it was all there in black and white. And everything is in fact closed on the coast. So yeah, just the quickest, easiest resource in any one city, in any one state. Just look for those local destination marketing organization websites, and they'll have those resources for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Caitlin. All right, next up, Kayley. Kayley, this is a tough question that everyone's been asking, so I know that you've prepared and have a good insight for our event planners right now. So how do I know when to reschedule my event?
Yes, this is just like the burning question. It really is going to continue to change, but I'm hoping that with this this answer that I can try to point you in the right direction, get the ball rolling on what you might need to do, and then give you the resources to make that decision. So yeah, if I would just start off by saying if your date falls between now and May 15th, or sorry, the end of May, you need to reschedule. And what I would say is that you have to chat with all of your vendors and come up with a plan B, whether that is just picking up your wedding and dropping it on a new day in 2021, or if that means doing like a smaller kind of elopement, just you and your fiance. There's a couple different options, and that can be a separate question if someone is curious what they can do instead of their planned larger wedding. But yeah, if your date falls between June and August, I would start creating a postponement plan. Set a date on your calendar at least 8 weeks out to decide whether or not you're going to follow through with your wedding, because time is going to pass by so quickly, and each week I know that you're going to continue to wait for good news that things are going to be back in order, and you can continue on with your wedding to full capacity. But yeah, it's important to set a date on your calendar to make that decision. Like I said, 8 weeks, just because that way you have a little bit more flexibility in working with your vendors if you need to change your date so you can get a refund or get some sort of refund for your order if that's possible. It really depends on the vendor, or transferring your retainer to a new date so you don't lose out on that money completely. But it's also really important to keep your guests in mind too. So depending on if or how far they might be traveling, they might need a large chunk of time to adjust their travel plans and hotel accommodations. So, and if your date falls between September and December, it's not too soon to start reaching out to your vendors and just coming up with a game plan if you need to pull that trigger. Because we're, like I said, new information is coming out every single day. And so it's always better to just be prepared. And so I know that some venues are allowing their couples with earlier dates to pick new dates for 2021 or later dates. And they have first dibs at those. So it might be unlikely that you can set a new tentative date, but like I said, it's just really important to reach out to your venue and talk about rescheduling fees or what their procedure is for following the CDC sanitary recommendations. So yeah, hope that helps.
That's great, Kayley. Thank you. All right. And so my next question is going to be for Marie. Marie, now that everyone is getting accustomed to online events and meetings, how do you think this will affect in-person live events?
So I think that this is actually going to reinforce the importance of live events now that we can't have them, which is obviously the hope for all of us, is really the importance of that face-to-face, in-person meeting. I think the fear is that everybody will get used to this and not want to go back to those, but I think that people really know the importance of it now, but it's going to be more of a hybrid. It's actually everybody that has been using Zoom and all these other platforms, we were all afraid of it before. People are getting to know it. And so it's actually kind of exciting because I think it can enhance our meetings and it can actually open up our events into a wider audience that maybe couldn't come to a seminar or a meeting. In a wedding, maybe there's different, grandma couldn't come and now you can live stream it because you have the experience. But really, it's, we need to get back to those live events as soon as possible because the key factors of a successful event is really creating that enthusiasm, and that's contagious, and you can't get that over a computer. So really hoping that soon we'll be able to have a little bit of hybrid on that.
Awesome. Thank you, Marie. All right. My next question is for Becka. Becka, what advice would you give for couples who are trying to keep their weddings scheduled for this year in regards to the entertainment industry?
There we go. I have always viewed weddings, whether they're religious in nature or not, as something that's pretty sacred. And part of that unity of the day is involving your friends and family and loved ones. You want them to be there with you. And regarding the entertainment, that's a completely different bear to handle on something this year. We don't know if we're going to get another wave of this. We don't know if it's going to stick around. I know personally, I've lost a family member from this, and I know it's real. And I know that within 5 days of them getting it, they could not be with us anymore ever again. So that's something really serious to consider when you're inviting family members. I look out at weddings and I see, 30% at least of the guests are older. And you're asking them to go into the room, and there's all of that, which we can talk about with catering and beverages and people touching everything. But as far as the entertainment goes, are you envisioning having a big party and wanting to have all those guests cram into a 20 by 20 dance floor and dance and breathe on each other and do that sort of thing? Right now, if you were to ask me, I wouldn't go near that this year. Hopefully, maybe by the end of the year, we don't know that. And the other thing to think about as far as the entertainment goes, talking to whoever's providing your audio situation with about microphones, because you're holding something and you're putting literally your lips and spitting into it. And how do you clean that at a wedding when you're doing toasts and passing a mic around? Your person's going to have several mics. They're going to have a way to sanitize that. I personally haven't really looked into it. I know there's ways, but I don't know if there's a quick sanitation between passing it between people or not. So that too, if someone's doing a wedding on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the lav mics that you're putting on people, also those need to be cleaned. So all of us have our own roles in that. But for me, also being slight germaphobe already, where buffets have always freaked me out, thinking about putting your loved ones all together in close quarters and doing this, you really got to think about, is that something we really want to do right now, even if it gets cut in half? Are you willing to do that this year? So I think if it were me and I had a wedding scheduled in August, I would be giving it at least another month before making any decisions, if that was me, and seeing how this pans out. I'm not telling you to just cut ties already, but I'm seeing the way it's going that I definitely wouldn't want to put a bunch of people on a dance floor anytime soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Becka. All right, my next question is going to be for Claire. Claire, can we still have a get together in our home and have certain vendors present for the occasion?
So the short answer is no, you can't. I think a lot of pretty much all reputable vendors at this point are respecting the stay-at-home order, not only for themselves, but their family and ultimately your families. Kind of just like Becca was saying, it doesn't have to be a dance floor. It can be your home. It can feel super safe. You can say, you know what, I want my photographer there. And like my company, we also do event staffing, which means we'll help with setup, cleanup, replenishing of food, taking out trash. So not only do we do a lot of weddings and corporate events, but we do a ton of in-home parties. And I've already started seeing inquiries come in for people who want us there for their celebrations, regardless of them saying it's a wedding or not. We can't safely operate. And coming from the food and hospitality industry, I would say about 3/4 of my bartenders and staff would be in that house just as soon as they could be, because they're all about that hustle and getting in there and doing what it takes to make it work. And we kind of have to, you know, they would still be bartending and doing staffing right now, and they're not comfortable with the staying at home. A lot of the people in this industry, especially like going into restaurants and things, they're used to just working. That's what they do to make ends meet, and that's what they like to do. They don't just have one job typically. They have a bunch of jobs pieced together, and that's a lot like our staff. And I know everyone has seen a lot about like photography and how photographers are going in and doing things. And right now, point blank, it's illegal. And as a potential client, you also don't want to put them at risk, their business, their livelihood. There's no way that they should want to do that to themselves. But as a client coming to them and saying, yeah, but I'll give you $500 or $1,000 so that you can pay your rent, it's just not worth anybody's life, in my personal opinion. And I know a lot of people feel the same.
Awesome. Thank you, Claire. It's a very solid answer for sure. Markelle, when I contact my caterer regarding postponing, do I need to have a new date picked out already?
So easy answer for us is no. As a caterer, we don't need you to have a new date picked out already. So generally as catering companies, but specifically for Act 3 catering, we are equipped on our busy days to serve about 4 to 5 weddings. So currently I don't have any dates booked up in 2021. So we're trying to be as flexible as possible with our clients. So when they reach out to us about rescheduling or postponing, I love that I can make it a little bit easier on them, and I can just say, coordinate with your other vendors and we'll make any day work, which I think kind of takes just a tiny bit more pressure off of our clients. So as a catering company, as Act 3 Catering, we don't need that new date picked out for their future wedding date. Another great thing too is if they do decide to do that small in-home like wedding, just the two of them, we would love to still at least postpone out for like a reception, something a little bit more casual. Since it is food, we're not locked into exactly the same service. So if we go from an elegant plated dinner for 200 people, we can totally be flexible and do more of like an appetizer cocktail hour that's a little bit more casual. So we try to be as flexible as possible in normal times, and then even more flexible in times like this.
Awesome. Thank you, Markelle. And then next we'll have Ashley go. Ashley, what can clients expect to see venues do to ensure clean and safe gathering environments when orders are lifted? How should we start planning for that now?
So I anticipate you will start seeing venues needing to change some of their capacity requirements, especially if we start to phase back into social gatherings where a venue hall used to be able to hold 300 people. If we are trying to maintain appropriate social distancing, even when we are allowed to gather again, they might reduce those numbers. So be prepared to perhaps have less people sitting at at your table or not being able to have as many guests in your existing venue. And just being a little bit flexible about changing your floor sets compared to what the original layout was. You know, there may be spatial requirements, and that may just lower the capacity for the room. So create an action plan now in how you can provide those social distancing methods for your guests and for your vendors, and just let everybody know that it's something that you have thought about and that you're prepared to be flexible with. Ask your venue if they have hand sanitizing stations in their rooms and if they're accessible to you and your guests. And if not, is that something that you need to bring on your own so that you can make sure that you and the people that you're gathering are protected? Right now, it's really hard to determine exactly what the changes will be because the at-home order is still in effect. And even though talk of change has been on the news and in conferences, actual changes haven't been made. So once that happens, I think you'll see a lot of vendors have already been trying to think about this, what they're going to do next, how they can be safe. I'm sure there are several catering companies that would be happy to work with your venue to make sure that everybody is working together to have a healthy and safe environment. And as we phase back into normal, we might see a different set of requirements from these vendors from now on. So I just encourage all of us, vendors and clients and everyone alike, to just have an open mind about what the future may be. You know, we think that it will go back to normal eventually, but that could be 6, 12, 18 months from now until we see that happening again. And just having patience with each other and a lot of grace about what those changes are. I think clear communication is incredibly important, especially if you want to feel safe and you want your attendees to feel safe. Just being in communication with your vendors about what their practices are will be really important.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. All right, so now we're going to start digging into some of the questions that our attendees submitted before the webinar. So listen out, you'll probably hear your question asked now, and we have some people in mind to answer these questions. So when I call your name, please just give your best answer. Okay, so our first question was, what are Washington State's current restrictions on marriages during the ban? And I was hoping Becca would answer that question.
Okay, there. So that's been the question, and we've been seeing a lot of people wondering if they can go and elope right now. We've been seeing advertisements in different Facebook groups from officiants offering to marry people in person or do virtual weddings. And we've talked to a lot of different vendors who have had to break their hearts and their wallets by telling people, no, I will not break the law and marry you right now. So I spent literally an entire day calling the government to find out these answers. First, I called the King County Recorder's office, and I actually did speak with the supervisor. His name is John. And he told me that basically, yes, Jay and Lee said all weddings are banned, period. And that a wedding is signing that marriage certificate. It's not to happen. But he said that the way it works is it's very hard for the governor to say something and then have legislation take effect and it trickle all the way down. So they haven't been told if they should still be issuing marriage certificates or not. So they are. And they have 2 people in every recorder's office right now processing all the marriage certificates that are coming in because they have to be processed in person. So it's really putting their lives at risk too, to have to go into these courthouses every day to do something, but they can't get an answer from Secretary of State or the Health Department or anybody whether or not they're supposed to be doing it. I called the Attorney General. They said all weddings are banned. Secretary of State told me all weddings are banned. Depending on which county you called, the clerks all gave different answers because they just don't know. They're people just like us. They're not getting anything from the top trickling down. So I did get a hold of Jay Ensley's office, and no one has called them at all from our state and actually asked, what do you mean by all weddings are banned? So I was lucky enough to be able to get in touch with their attorney. And at first they said, well, we think that maybe virtual weddings might be okay, until I told them that we know for a fact that marriage by proxy is not legal in the state. And of course, even though they're attorneys, they aren't downloaded with all the information in the entire state. But so once he found that out, he said, well, then no. If it's not legal to do a wedding online, then it's not legal to get married. What does that mean? They're still processing the marriage certificates. Could they come back at any time and say all marriages are void from this point back to the beginning of March? They could. Are they going to? Probably not. But what is bringing the attention is people are getting married still. They're having photographers, hair and makeup artists, which is totally against the health department. They're hiring florists, which we now know that some florists can operate legally through flower markets, things like that. But when you're hiring paid people in the wedding industry, right now we are in the entertainment category in Washington State. We cannot operate legally. So you cannot pay an officiant to marry you right now. That's breaking the law. That's something that other people like photographers and officiants who are sitting home not making any money right now and struggling because believe it or not, small businesses really aren't getting the loans we were promised. They get upset and they're reporting these things. So my biggest warning to everybody is, yes, you still can get married. You can have your friend marry you. You can have a couple of witnesses, do your 6-foot distancing, file it, it'll go through. Here's the scary part. Anybody at any time in the future can challenge a marriage, period. I don't know if you know this. And they said it's not common, but it does happen. So if you and your friends have a virtual wedding and your friends are not in the same county and you get in a fight with them later on in life, they can report that and challenge your marriage and say, I wasn't in the same county as this person when they got married, and your marriage literally doesn't exist anymore. If you have a spouse, and I hate to say how high the divorce rate is, but I've been divorced myself. If I were to get married during a wedding ban and know that I hired an officiant illegally and I had all this information and I did it anyway, I would much rather at that point, 18 years down the road, go back and challenge my marriage license and have my marriage dissolved that way than spend $17,000 for the divorce like I did. So these are real things that you need to think about. When people have this knowledge that you didn't get married legally, down the road that can be reported and your marriage can be dissolved. I personally don't think it's worth it at this time. Just wait a few months like everybody else is. And if you do it, be really, really quiet about it.
That's great. Wow. A lot of good information there. So I think I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next question because I don't think anyone can summarize that better than that for sure. So great answer there. Thank you. Our next question came from a bride who has an international wedding. So she has an international wedding in July in Ireland, and she has no idea when to make the call on if she should pull the plug. So I was hoping Kayley could start out by answering this.
Yeah, so this one again is pretty tricky, but I know that this isn't going to be the answer that you would like to hear, but I do unfortunately think that it would be wise to pull the plug on this because it is international, and depending on where it is in Ireland, if it's a small town, there is still the possibility that they're going to struggle with the same things that we're still struggling here domestically, where hospitals don't have the capacity to hold patients if it's a small town. Yeah, so bringing your guests, depending on how many you have, to this town, or I don't know, again, I don't know where it is in Ireland, but that's a possibility of possibly bringing coronavirus there or spreading it or just making matters worse over there. And also non-essential travel is still banned. So we don't know when that is going to, we don't know when that's going to dissolve at this point. And so just trying to force that wedding to happen, it might only make matters worse down the road, as opposed to just calling it this week or the next couple weeks. And like I said, 8 weeks is always a great, kind of like a great, what's the word? Just 8 weeks is great for deciding whether or not to move forward with your wedding. But when it comes to international weddings, I think closer to around like 12 weeks, just to give your guests flexibility to work with airlines and hotel accommodations to move those things around. And that doesn't mean that you can't move something domestically. It doesn't mean that you can't have a celebration domestically, you know. And at the end of the day, I do really love this saying that's been going around, is that love is not canceled. You know, you can still have some sort of celebration here and with your guests too. Your guests do want to celebrate with you. They just want to do it safely. And so I think it would be important to maybe touch base with some of your guests too and see how they're feeling about traveling internationally, because that's something that everyone is feeling maybe a little bit different about. So unfortunately, I would say to pull the plug on that. And I know that that's really hard to hear. And it's, I've been learning too that it's okay to cry and mourn the things that we've lost and these visions that we've had for what our wedding was supposed to look like, or whatever this was supposed to be like, things that we've lost. But I heard someone once say that it's okay to take a trip there to mourn that, but don't unpack your bags there. Continue forward. Keep focusing on the fact that you will have a celebration with your loved ones and that you're going to be marrying your best friend. And even if it's going to be different than how you envision, it's still going to be a wedding, and you're still going to get married. So just if and when. So stay positive. I'm sorry.
Love that, Kaylee. That definitely warmed my heart. Does anyone want to add to that at all? You can shake your head yes or no if any of our panelists. Becca? Okay.
Did we see the comments in the chat about the Ireland thing? Kathleen Fogarty said restrictions in Ireland are much stricter than here. We had to cancel our honeymoon to Ireland July 12th or 2nd through 12th. We were contacted by the airline and hotel. And Mike Nakamura said potential quarantine upon an arrival in Ireland.
Wow, yeah, that's good to know. Definitely. Yeah, thanks for reading that, Becca, for sure. So yeah, there's more to that answer as well. Awesome. Anyone else want to add anything before I move on?
I've got something.
Sure.
So probably not just Ireland. There's probably other people who are going to be traveling, maybe somewhere else you're planning on traveling. So one thing to think about is if you have travel insurance, it doesn't necessarily cover the COVID-19 unless you actually are ill. So if it's something that you've already purchased your ticket and you bought travel insurance, make sure you look at your policy and find out about that. Let's say you're just traveling to California or something for your wedding. But the other thing to think about, if you haven't purchased your ticket and you still are planning on traveling in the next few months for your wedding, or you have people that are traveling here, one thing you can look at is there is a cancel for any reason policy that you can add on to that. It's of course going to be a little more expensive, so look at the policy, see what it covers. But you can decide I had a bad hair day and cancel 2 days before you're going to leave. So that's something to consider adding. I'm personally a fan of travel insurance. A lot of people don't realize it covers more than just your ticket. If, say, people did fly here for your wedding or you flew somewhere else and something happened there, it can help you with hotel stays if you needed, things for luggage. And there's even medical coverage. So God forbid you did get sick while you were gone. Those plans have medical coverage on them too. So just something to look at if you are considering traveling other places.
That's awesome. Thank you, Marie. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next question. The next one was addressing web calls. So we are all on web calls all day now. What are the above and beyond ways of making a virtual event unique? So I was hoping maybe, Marie, maybe you wanted to start out answering this?
Sure. So I was just on a webinar with ILEA last week. And one of the great things that they did that made it really fun is you're trying to figure out how to get that engagement. And so they were able to break into small breakup sections. So each panelist had like maybe a group of 5 or 6 people that those 5 or 6 people could actually have a conversation. So it wasn't just sitting and listening and being in the audience. They actually got to be involved in the webinar as well. So just finding unique ways to get people actually involved versus sitting there and just listening.
Awesome. Anyone else have anything to add? I know I had Claire, maybe if you had anything to add, or anyone else. All right, we can move on to the next question then. Our next one is about contracts. So will you change your contracts to reflect new cleanliness standards? Will you need to state your exact cleaning procedures in those contracts? I was hoping, Markelle, could you touch on that at all?
Not a lot yet, just because we're kind of at a standstill right now with just working on postponements and everything. We're definitely on our way to, once we're kind of all hopefully back together, kind of brainstorming updates to contracts. First of all, we kind of need to make an addendum contract for all of our date changes with all of our clients. And then again, updating our main contract to include different cleanliness standards, definitely, and kind of what that entails. And that is also something that we need to work closely with the venue with, because as a caterer, kind of the basis of our cleanup standards are brought to us by the venue and what they expect, whether it's cleaning the kitchen, leaving it the way you found it, or as far as like mopping or sweeping the entire venue area. So that's definitely something we'll have to individually work with all of our venues to kind of make a baseline of all of our cleanliness standards and kind of outlining that, and then kind of individualizing it per venue and what their new cleanliness standards are as well.
That's great. Awesome. Thank you, Markelle. Yeah, Claire, I was hoping Claire, Ashley, either one.
Perfect, thank you. So something that a lot of people don't think about is the cleanliness of their bar. So it's basically the same thing as food. When we go to like the Snohomish wedding tour we're involved with, the Seattle wedding show, we are still getting talked to by the Department of Health to make sure that our standards, like our garnishes, are cut in a commissary kitchen or in our kitchen, that we're not cutting them on site. You're supposed to have a hand washing station within a few, with how many ever feet of where you're doing, and you need hot water. And so at the Seattle wedding show, we actually have to get, we have to rent the big, I don't even know what they're called, but we use them as hand washing stations, and they're like where you keep hot water hot or coffee hot or tea hot. And we have those there so that we can wash our hands, wash anything there if we can't sneak out to the bathroom or the back kitchen. And I think as we get back closer into doing business ourselves, for anything bar related, we're going to have to make sure that our staff have the garnishes ready and that they're cut and cleaned in a proper facility. And so maybe that's something that we have to price into our contracts now. And we no longer allow our clients to bring their own lemons and limes, that we have to do that, or that we also work in that they have to rent a hot water station, or that we have to bring it. And really it's, it might raise the cost in the end, but it's going to benefit every single person. Also making sure that all companies that deal with food or beverages are making sure that their staff, especially us, we have about 60 bartenders that work under us. We've had people that didn't want to call in sick, and eventually were like the day before the wedding, oh, but I've been throwing up. At what point were you going to let us know? So making sure that we have sick policies in place, and that we have backups so that we're not dropping the ball on our clients, and that our bartenders aren't dropping the ball on everyone. So I think there's a lot more to think about that as well, and making sure that our clients feel comfortable with what we're doing.
That's awesome. Thank you, Claire. Ashley, did you have anything to add from a venue standpoint?
Just, so I think that as far as seeing things change in the contracts themselves, you won't see anything until we have a better idea of what's going to happen next. I know everybody wants the answers right now so that we can start preparing, but it's hard to change those legal documents until we know what is appropriate or what is inappropriate. So I would just recommend, venues, bartending services, catering services, any food or beverage based vendor, just communicate with each other. And I think that's what you're going to start seeing more of, is that these vendors who might not have even talked to each other. There have been instances where I've never talked to the caterer that came to our property because that's just not, they didn't feel the need to communicate with me, but I think you'll see people communicating more so that they feel that they're protected, that the venue feels that vendors coming in will be having safer quality control, or, you know, et cetera. I think everybody will just be checking each other. And I think that'll be a great thing in the end. Stronger checks and balances, I think, are going to be a huge benefit of what comes out of all of this. And I'm pretty excited to see that from a food and beverage side.
That's awesome. Thank you, Ashley. All right, moving on to another question we had come in. And this is from one of our lovely brides. So I'm going to have Ashley actually start with this one. But we had a reception planned for June 6th, but moved it to September 26th. What if we have to move it again?
Yeah, again, if the city suspends your event or makes any decisions that impact your event, then we would, again, work with you on a change of date. Or, you know, if it's just too hard or not possible for you to change your date and you need to cancel, then most likely we will refund you in full. I'll be honest, we would much rather you postpone than cancel. All of us, you know, have been working really hard over the last 12 months to obtain the clients that we already have, and we've established relationships and we've organized and planned out really far in advance. You know, we plan a year out, if not a year and a half, depending on the client. Some people with corporate events, they're planning for years these events that they have. And so to lose that so quickly, it's painful, and it's a big hit on all of these businesses. So we would really much prefer for people to postpone. But I think what you're seeing in the events industry is that a lot of vendors are being as understanding as possible, that if you were very proactive during the beginning in early March, and you changed your date and thought that the summertime was going to be a comfortable place for us to hold large gatherings again, and then things change, you know, we're going to help you change that again. And maybe we need to start looking further out. You know, we might get to a point where we're not rebooking May events for September. We might get to a point where we're just booking the next year out because we just don't know what's going to happen. And we understand that changing dates with every single vendor is just so challenging. I believe Kayley has a really great template on her website of how to keep track of dates with different vendors so that you can keep it all in order. And venues definitely are the top of the tier when people start looking at date changes. And so we're going to do our best to work with everybody as much as possible. And then for us personally, I saw this question come through, so I'm just going to address it. For weekday events, we are open 7 days a week. You can have your wedding, memorial, you know, you can have your birthday party, baby shower, Monday through Sunday. We are open. And so I think a lot of people think that wedding venues are only open Saturdays, Sunday, maybe Fridays. Start asking your vendors if they are open to doing a weekday. And there are some places that have different rates for weekday gatherings, and ask them, hey, what kind of rates are available for that?
That's awesome. Did anyone else have anything to add from a different vendor standpoint at all? All right, we're gonna switch gears a little bit with a different type of question, because I'd love to hear from Caitlyn a little bit. So what ways do you see tour operators pivoting with the current state of tourism in Washington State?
So in Washington State, I work a lot with domestic tour operators, so they're not necessarily going to be just strictly in Washington, but they can be in Louisiana and New York City, and they're bringing tour groups to Washington. A lot of them, unfortunately, are canceling right now. A huge piece of the summer tourism pie here is going to be cruise. and the Port of Seattle, I believe, still has, it's up in the air as to whether or not, or when the Port of Seattle will open up for cruising in Alaska. And more to that point, 2 of the major cruise lines that go to Alaska have cut all but 2 of their ships. They've gone from 7 ships sailing to Alaska now to 2 when they do open up for business. So cruising in and out of Seattle up to Alaska is a big part of it. So they're seeing a lot of cancellations, a lot of postponements, a big rally cry. Ashley already said it, but don't cancel, postpone. And that goes from meetings and events all the way through to tourism. So it's definitely changing. And I think right now on a statewide level, we're looking more at that drive market as opposed to a fly market. So people are going to drive to Washington before they fly to Washington. And that's not even necessarily driving from, Idaho. They could be driving up from driving down from Bellingham down to Seattle. So everybody's going to have to be just real crafty in regards to tour and travel and how we can get folks to our region and to our cities again. Kind of looking at that staycation model, sticking close to home with that drive market, but it's definitely taking a toll. This summer is going to be very quiet. We'll see what happens May 4th, and we'll see what happens on a national level with travel restrictions, but fingers crossed it's going to end sooner than later for sure.
That's great. Did anyone else have anything to add to that? All right, I thought this question was really unique and creative, so I'd love to hear some of you talk about this. But any tips for creative ways to show vendors love if we do have to cancel our big wedding? Go for it, Ashley.
Sure. I mean, I'm kind of assuming it's you're saying, hey, my vendor let me cancel, and we really appreciated it. And because, we're getting a lot of folks who are financially impacted. We've had clients tell us that, they're worried they're not going to have jobs here in the future. And my heart reaches out to those people. I come from a very long line of hospitality experience. I've been in the hospitality industry since I was 12 years old, and my parents owned a coffee shop. And so I get the day-to-day lifestyle that Claire was touching on earlier. You hustle, you work, and that's what you do all day, every day. But you're kind of living paycheck to paycheck. And so there's not just the hospitality industry that's affected like that. There's so many people all over the industries, every industry you can think of, have people are being laid off or furloughed or just flat don't have a job or clients or anything anymore. And so I think a really great way to show love is just hop on their social media pages and say a big thank you, tag them in a post that you made. It's such a social media based world these days. I think that can go a long way, and you'll see that the vendors themselves are going to be really grateful. Go on Google or Yelp, the world of negative reviews, be the person that leaves a positive one. I've had clients that have canceled and they are just super grateful. And even though they're not going to do business with us, it doesn't mean we didn't have a professional interaction, and that we can't still, give each other kudos for handling it like pros.
That's great. Yeah. Does anyone else want to add anything to that? How any of your clients could help you if they do have to cancel? Kaylee?
Yeah. It's kind of what Ashley said too. I just wanted to emphasize a little bit more as a one-woman LLC. Referrals go so far, and it always is amazing to me when people refer my name, even whether it's on social media or face-to-face with another person, when they're like, I got your name from this person. Oh my goodness, it really warms my heart. It's amazing. And so one thing that I was going to say is that never underestimate kind of the power of your voice or your platform, because you have 1,000 friends on Facebook or whatever. Maybe it's only 500. Anyways, you never know who is looking for a photographer or a caterer or whatever it might be. And so just mentioning their name in particular, you might send 3 clients their way, and that's amazing. That is, yeah, we could not thank you guys enough. And then again, write reviews, you know, two free things that you can do that only take a little bit of time that go so far. I mean, every time we're looking for a new restaurant, right, you immediately go check the reviews to see, you know, what they're saying about this place. Is it good? Is it worth the wait? Or is it not? Or is it whatever it might be? So yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that a bit more.
Yeah, I think that's great. And another way too, even, is just to throw Markelle under the bus a little bit. Like Act 3 has been doing their little catering door-to-door service and things like that. So just being able to support it in smaller ways, because so many of these vendors have gotten creative on their own and had to branch out from their normal day-to-day and do creative things to keep their business afloat. So being able to support them in different ways as well by doing something that you wouldn't normally do through them. So yeah. That's a great answer. Thank you, guys. So my next question, let's see if I have any more on my Q&A. So this one is interesting. So how do we safely distance people in large groups, and how long will we need to? So not even just like how long will events not be able to happen, but when they do come back, like how long is that going to happen? Yeah, Ashley.
I'll touch on that one a little bit. Again, I think you're going to see, like, whereas you used to fit 10 people at a 60-inch round table, now you're maybe only fitting 6 people at a 60-inch round table, and those tables have to now be 6 feet apart from each other, from back of chair to back of chair. So like that's a plan that Mandy and I already have set, is when we go back into our buildings, start creating new room sets so that our clients can be prepared for how just more spacing is going to work out, and how realistically how many people can comfortably be in that building now. Because whereas, you know, you had a ballroom of 100 people, that might be different now. And same with like buffets, where your food items might have been closer and your you know, we're double-sided. Now maybe you're only single-side buffet and you have a sneeze guard that is on top of it, and you have 4 to 6 feet away between Sheafers. Like you just might need a little bit more space. So definitely being creative with that kind of stuff is going to be helpful. You know, I saw a question come through, like, how do we politely uninvite our guests? I mean, it's really hard. I would hope that a lot of people at this point would understand, you know, due to everything that's happened and new restrictions at our venue or with our vendors, we've decided to limit our wedding to friends, immediate friends and family only, or whatever the case may be, or just to limit traveling restrictions, or to not have people have to travel out of state. We're only inviting people in the state where the event's being held. Those might just have to be tough calls. And then put a camera up somewhere so people can still join you virtually. I mean, Zoom's not going anywhere. It's going to be the new norm for sure. And so we've already seen that in the past few years in the events industry, people using, you know, Facebook or FaceTime. You know, my grandmother couldn't make it for some reason. We set her up with an iPhone and we're FaceTiming her, and she has her own chair in the front seat of the ceremony space, and it says, you know, reserved for grandma so-and-so. Like, you've seen that already happening. It might just have to be a little bit of a new norm. So consider talking to a videographer who might have some expertise on how to make that be a little bit smoother. Because Zoom is hard, we found out, and it doesn't always go as planned. So yeah.
Yeah, go, Kaylee, go ahead.
I was just going to let people know that there is a service called Married Live Stream that's very similar to Zoom, but it is a team that comes in and live streams your wedding, so you don't have to worry about any of the technical difficulties that could come with that. So yeah, it's called Married Live Stream for anyone who might be interested.
Perfect. Markelle, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, just piggybacking a little bit off of what she said in regards to like changes to food and beverage. We had already kind of seen some changes that we made to the last couple weddings that we did at the beginning of March before the stay-at-home mandate. So just small things like we normally do a double-sided buffet and everyone can kind of serve themselves however much they want of each item. So we took away all the serving utensils. We made them all one-sided and we served the guests instead of them serving themselves to just take away that hand-to-hand touch on the utensils. Even something as small as like past appetizers, something that you don't really ever think about how like germs can transfer, things like that. We made it so that we were kind of individually passing those out rather than somebody just grabbing a stuffed mushroom off the tray and then touching the napkins as well. And then even something like a cheese display, rather than having one set of tongs and like serving utensils on the display, we did individual bamboo compostable tongs. So each guest had their own set of tongs that they used rather than like grabbing the same set over and over again.
That's great. Awesome. Okay, so now I'm looking through the chat questions, and this one's really great. So I'd love if anyone gives some thoughts on this. Faith said, I love all of my vendors and I hope to be able to bring them all to a new date if I do have to postpone. What if not all of my vendors are available on the same new date? I'd rather not cancel on any of them if possible. Any suggestions or tips for that? Marie, perfect.
I don't have a perfect answer, and you know, I think more people than not are going to come across that problem. Looking at alternate dates is, we've talked about like weekdays, you know, kind of these off the norm dates. You'll have a better chance of having all your vendors available. But I think it's just, you have to pick what's the most important. Is my, you know, my dream wedding is at this venue. Then you start there, you know, and you'll have to pick what are the most important things, even though you love all your vendors, what are the things that are going to contribute most to your wedding. And then just have that heart to heart with your vendor and then talk to them. They might have a reference for you because they understand that they're not available that day. So they might be able to refer somebody that they think will do a great job for you as well.
Awesome. Yeah, go ahead, Claire.
I will say the sooner you do it and start reaching out, the more luck you're going to have. Just because, I mean, even yesterday I talked to a bride that is getting married in October and was like, what do I do? And I was like, so usually you wouldn't have a problem with this date. That being said, all of my June, July, and August are also now looking at October if they're not already looking at 2021. So you're going to have more luck by that. If you want to look in the summer of next year, I had another couple that their coordinator actually reached out to all of their vendors, asked every single one of their vendors, hey, are there any dates that just don't work to you at this time? And this was probably over like a week and a half process. So she started there and then she went to, okay, we have this set of dates that everyone's available. And then they moved on to the next type. And like, it just kind of got smaller and smaller. And by the end of it, they knew exactly what date that they needed to move to. And so I think as long as you give yourself enough time to do that and start doing it now, and then just casting that net wide, you're going to have more luck than if you wait and just pick one vendor.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. So I think we're kind of getting to a good wrap up point here. And I just wanted to reach out first before we kind of go into like final statements. Did anyone on the panel feel like there was something that didn't get addressed appropriately, or any attendees last minute have a question or anything like that? I don't see really anything coming through. Kayley? Yeah, go ahead.
So something that I had kind of noted that if it came up, I was prepared, but just like how to start that postponement process. And I don't think that we have any planners in the group, but one thing that I wanted to say is to, if it's in the budget, hire a planner, because they are the ones that can really help you logistically figure all of this out. There's so many moving pieces to planning a wedding. And so just having one person that's really experienced with last minute changes and just bringing like a neutral voice to this situation could be really helpful to have on your team. So that's one thing that I would just say, if you're considering postponing, just to talk with a planner and get them on your team.
Great. I think that's a great tip for sure. I did see that I skipped a question earlier from Mimi, and I was hoping to address that real quick too, if anyone could chime in on that question. So Mimi submitted a question to our Q&A earlier, and let me pull that up real quick. Okay, so she's a vendor and she does readings up close and personal. And so she's kind of wondering, like, if she takes her readings virtually, will clients go for this? And I was hoping maybe Becca, if you could touch in on that.
Hey, Mimi. Hey. You know, that's really kind of a brilliant idea. And I haven't taken part in any virtual events yet or virtual corporate shindigs, but I think that is a great idea to have, and we'd have to talk to someone who sets up this, maybe a videographer, like, you know, we could ask Reed Johnson in the Seattle Wedding and Event Network. He might have some answers on how to logistically do this, but that would be kind of cool to be able to have a little side Zoom or something like that, to where the attendees can each have a little one-on-one with you for their own little virtual reading, or handwriting analysis, or just something like that. And entertainment wise, that sounds like a blast. And I think you're on the right track with that. Do you guys agree that you think like virtual entertainment is going to kind of go that way, with more of like a Zoom type one-on-one with each of the guests individually?
Yeah, I can speak to that too. I actually know what Mimi does. She does lip reading, and it's super fun. And I think with any business, we're trying to figure out how to pivot. And I think it's the perfect pivot. And the only thing I'd add to that, Mimi, is one thing that would make this great is they have that record. They can actually record it, because I know I've done it before, and you're like, now what'd she say again? So it actually would enhance it. So I think it's a great option and good for you for figuring out ways to, you know, to change.
Yeah, I think we're talking to two. Mimi Pettibone is the one I'm talking to. So she does handwriting analysis and tarot card reading. But I know your lip reader.
I agree though, same thing. Just the whole, it all stands. Like the recording of it, we're trying to remember what they said. They'll really add to it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Sorry, Mimi, I know you too, and I confused you. I apologize.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. So if there's nothing really further, I'd love for each of us to just kind of go around the room one more time and maybe leave with a final thought of something like that, if you guys are up to for that. So we want to start with Ashley.
Unmute myself. So I did see one last question come through the Q&A, and it's a really tough one, and I just wanted to address it the best I could, but I think other vendors here might even have a better answer than I do, being that I work for a government agency. But it's just addressing why vendors may not be able to offer refunds for events that are postponed and canceled. You know, when you're looking at these they're considered small business owners when it's, you know, one owner, two, maybe three owners, and then their crew of people. That deposit that you put down might have already gone into costs that have accrued throughout the maybe dark season. Like if you booked back in January or October of last year and there were administrative costs, that deposit could have already helped pay for them to get through that time of year, when it may be more administrative work happening and not necessarily events, but there's still costs that happen there. And so it's hard for some folks to return money that has already been dedicated to an aspect of their business. And that's a big reason why deposits are laid down is so that all the legwork that happens in the forefront of your event is covered, and you're not just waiting until that event happens or the month before or whenever your final payment is due to get the money for that. There's a lot of work that goes into these events from every aspect, from the client to the vendor, and all of that work is going to cost money at some point. And there's immediate expenses, whether or not it's paying for the internet or paying for your office space. You know, people have rent that they have to pay on some of their locations, and that all it all gets pulled out of that right there. So I just wanted to quickly address that. I'm sure some other folks here might have a more in-depth look at that. But again, just communication for us is really important. We'd love to hear from you. If you have questions, don't hesitate to email or call. We want to be here for you, and we want to help all of each other out through this, whether it's from vendor to client or vendors referring out other vendors. I think you're going to see a lot of community built here, which is, you know, maybe the silver lining at the end of this, that we're going to have a stronger industry after this is all said and done, where we're all working a little bit more together. So I'm looking forward to that. But in the meantime, just how can we help? Let us know, please. And thank you so much for being here, everybody, panelists, attendees. I'm just so excited. Thanks.
Did anyone have anything to add on that question about why potentially a vendor wouldn't be able to refund? If not, we can move on to final. Becca, yeah, sure.
And this can really just be my final thought too, because it's been on my mind a lot. When we had situations happen like the venue in Everett that closed and just took everybody's money and pulled the rug out from under them. It was really tragic, and there's some couples right now that rescheduled from that, finally built up enough money, and then the pandemic hit, and now they don't have their wedding again. There's tragic stories like that, and I don't want the pandemic to turn into a lot of people planning events saying that they're victims of this and not realizing that the vendors are also victims of this as well. Because right now I have a pending post sitting here saying that we're victims of this, and they're asking for a vendor for an absurd, like $1 an hour type of budget, but they want a professional vendor. Please don't do that. Like, we have to work together and come up with things that are mutually acceptable between both parties, but please have some respect for the vendors out here, because they're not getting the PPP payments and all of these things that the government is saying that the vendors are getting. They're getting denied. And right now, I have a photographer right here as a friend who's in tears because she can't even get unemployment to be approved. So these people are struggling, and they don't have the money to be planning a nice expensive event with all their friends and family. That money that they're collecting from you is literally paying their bills and putting food on the table. So let's work together and really try to respect each other and come up with some mutually agreeable terms. And I look forward to seeing what we can build as a community for the next end of the year and next year, because I think it's going to be a really exciting time once we finally get to get out on the dance floor and drink with Claire. Thanks you guys for having me.
Awesome. Markelle, do you have one final line to give everyone?
I think my final message is just to remember that your vendors are on your team. None of us want a negative outcome for you guys, and we just want to serve you at a postponed, rescheduled date and do everything as we had planned, maybe with a couple little tweaks here and there. And then I just want to triple emphasize how important it is to leave reviews for your vendors. So even if you do decide to cancel or postpone right now, you can even just leave a review and say all of the things that this vendor did with me up to that point were awesome. They were great at communicating. They were responsive. Just small things like that that only take 5 minutes to go on the knot or wedding wire or anything like that really make a huge difference.
Thank you, Markelle. Kayley, what about you?
Yeah, just thank you everyone for being here and asking some really awesome questions. If you have any further questions, I think that there was a couple that maybe we didn't get to, sorry. But you can always reach out to any of us individually, I'm sure, and we are always more than happy to answer your questions and just be a resource during this very uncertain time. So if you have any questions for me specifically, you can find me at Kayley Driggers Photo on Instagram. But thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thanks, Kayley. Caitlin, what about you?
Yeah, I just thank you guys so much for having me as part of this discussion. These have been just easily the longest 2 months of my professional adult life. And I know we're all really ready to be on the other side of it. And I think in this industry, there's so much partnership and collaboration, and this group of amazing ladies is a testament to that. So I just think, I don't know, I feel like some pieces of this can seem kind of hopeless and really hard, but it'll all work out in the end. So just lean on each other and always ask questions, because everybody here, for folks who are trying to plan that perfect event, we're all just here to help. So thank you guys again.
Awesome. Thanks, Caitlin. Claire, do you have a final thought to leave everyone with?
Pretty much, if I say anything, it's going to be echoing what everyone else says. But I do see, all of the attendees, and I see a lot of people that I know from the industry. Sorry, my dog is on top of me. And pretty much just something that I've personally been doing has also been leaving feedback reviews for like vendors that I've worked for or worked with, photographers that have helped us, caterers that I've worked with and had their, been with them. So it doesn't only have to be couple to vendor. It can also be vendor to vendor. And I'm ready to party when everyone else is.
Love it. Marie, you want to wrap us up with the final thought?
Marie, you're muted.
Okay, is that better? Anyhow, just very simple. Be patient, be kind, be creative.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming today. I know there were a few hiccups. I appreciate everyone sticking around through it all. My biggest apologies for not getting the Facebook